Hola amigos, bienvenidos a la clase. Espero que estén practicando mucho los verbos y el vocabulario y hoy vamos a practicar más, ¿sí? Recuerden que aquí se habla español.
Muy bien, bienvenidos a todos. Today our lesson, we will focus on how to ask and answer questions using the AR verbs that we have already been learning. We will also learn where to place the word no and make sentence negative. And finally, we will learn some more verbs ending with AR. Okay.
Muy bien, let's get started. We're going to start by reviewing how to conjugate a verb in the AR.
Muy bien.
Okay, in the present tense.
Okay.
Okay, Carlos, I have the verb here, estudiar.
Estudiar, which means to
study.
To study. Muy bien, estudiar.
So let's see all the conjugations. These are the forms we need to know. How do I use the verb estudiar in these forms?
Okay, so estudiar, and again, you've reviewed it in our last lesson, and we covered it in the previous one, so you should be very familiar with it. Estudiar, drop the AR and add the O, so it would be yo estudio.
Perfecto. Yo estudio.
Muy bien.
Ahora, how do I say you study? Tú.
Then that would be tú estudias.
Perfecto. How can I say he studies?
Él,
She studies or you, formal.
ella y usted estudia.
Estudia. Correcto. Muy bien. Ahora, Carlos, la forma nosotros.
Muy bien, that would be nosotros estudiamos.
Muy bien. Nosotros estudiamos.
Muy bien.
Finalmente, la forma ellos o ellas o ustedes
Es estudian.
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 Muy
Muy
bien.
bien.
So here we've conjugated the verb in these 5 forms, and these are the 5 forms we need to know for every
Sí.
verb. See?
Excelente.
Muy bien. Remember then that in Spanish, the subject pronoun does not have to be used in every sentence. For example, here, when I make a sentence with yo, I'll say yo estudio, or I could just take out the word yo and start my sentence with the verb by itself. See?
Muy bien.
Estudio.
So it's not always necessary to include the yo. In other
Correcto.
words.
It's not necessary to always have this subject pronoun in your sentence. It's probably more common not to use it.
It's a
More
little
often-
redundant.
Yeah, more often I just use it if I want to be emphatic, to show emphasis, or maybe to clear it up, especially with these 3 forms, because if I just say estudia, it could be referring to él, o ella, or usted.
Okay,
See?
muy bien. So, do you want to write a sample sentence for?
See, I have
that
2
uses that?
samples for you,
Okay.
Carlos. Okay, let's look at these 2 sentences.
Okay.
Okay, trabajo en la universidad.
Okay.
See, if you look at the verb, do you think I need to add anything else to clear up this sentence?
In that case, trabajo is only used by yo, so no, it wouldn't be necessary.
So
you
this
can just say
sentence is-
trabajo
I work.
en la universidad. Okay.
Está bien.
But if I look at the second one, it says estudia en la biblioteca, but estudia could be él, ella, or usted, and that would cause a little confusion, I think.
See, it's a good idea here to include the subject pronoun.
Correct.
Okay, so if I were going to say she studies, what would I add to make this sentence more clear?
So then I would add ella before the verb.
Correcto.
Okay.
Ella.
Muy bien.
Ella estudia en la biblioteca.
Excelente.
¿Sí?
Okay. And if it's you formal, what would you say?
Then if it were you, I would say usted.
Usted estudia.
Estudia. ¿Sí?
Muy bien. Or él, right, if it's he.
Correcto.
Muy bien.
So notice
Excelente.
that we don't have to use these subject pronouns, ella or usted or even yo. We only use it if we need to be more clear or if we want to show emphasis.
And that would also be the case with ellos, ellas, and ustedes,
With
right?
any verb. Yeah, and we're
We
going to
would wanna
practice some
clarify.
questions today, and we're going to notice that a lot of times we don't use subject pronouns unless it needs
It's
to be
absolutely
there.
necessary to clarify. Muy bien. Very good.
Okay.
So now that we remember the forms, let's look at where to place the word no in a sentence. In Spanish, making sentences negative is very simple. The important part is to remember where to place the word no, okay, in the sentence. So let's take a look at some examples
Okay.
in the slides that we're going to show you. So in the first slide, we have sentence number 1, and this one says, yo hablo español, okay? Yo hablo español, pero Kathy, yo no hablo japonés. Yo no hablo
You
japonés.
don't speak Japanese.
No,
In
okay?
English, I use words like I don't. But in Spanish, the negative is
It's just no.
no. Okay.
No. And notice, where do we place the no, Kathy? Always.
It always comes in front of the verb.
Excelente.
Okay.
Let's try one more example. El profesor trabaja en la clase.
El profesor trabaja en la clase.
El profesor trabaja en la clase.
Okay.
El profesor no trabaja en el restaurante.
No trabaja. He doesn't.
No. Okay?
So in English, I use different words. Does, I don't, or he doesn't. And all I need to hear is
No.
no. Muy bien.
Antes del verbo, before
Right in
the
front
verb.
of the verb. Okay. No trabaja.
Sí, let's try one more example. Estudiamos español.
Sí, estudiamos. Here's a good example of the word estudiamos. Do we have to add nosotros?
No, not necessary.
It's understood, right? We estudiamos español.
Excelente. Pero negativo sería no estudiamos francés.
No estudiamos. We don't study French.
No, para nada. Okay,
bien.
muy bien. Okay. What's next, Kathy?
Okay, so now we're going to learn how to form questions in Spanish. You'll notice right away when we see our first question that the punctuation is different from punctuation in English. In Spanish, we mark a question with a question mark, an inverted question mark, at the beginning of the sentence as well as at the end. This tells the reader that a question is coming up. Okay? But when we're speaking, we won't see those question marks. We need to use the inflection of our voice to express that a question is being asked. So let's practice with a few examples.
Okay, vamos a ver. In the example, in the first one, we have a statement just clearly states that hablas inglés.
Muy bien. ¿Hablas inglés,
hablas
Carlos?
Inglés.
¿Hablas inglés?
Sí, hablo inglés.
Muy
So
bien.
that's a statement. So how do we form a question with that sentence, that statement?
Well, the question looks very
And
similar.
notice it's similar. The only thing that we added is actually, besides changing inglés, we added the question marks. Okay? And so what will we do in this case, Kathy?
Well, the written form is very similar, but when I say it, I'm going to have to change the inflection of my voice to make it sound like a question.
Muy bien.
So my intonation has to rise at the end.
Okay,
right?
muy
So
bien.
the question would be, ¿hablas español?
Sí, hablo español.
Muy bien.
So you just raise the voice at the end a little bit. Okay, so
intonation
hablas
changes.
español.
Sí.
Okay, muy bien. Let's try another one. And this statement says, usted trabaja mucho.
Usted trabaja mucho. You work a lot.
Sí.
Muy bien.
Muy bien. Ahora, una pregunta. So let's form a question with that. And that would be what, Kathy?
¿Trabaja mucho usted?
Okay, I noticed that the subject pronoun has changed from the beginning to the end in the question. Is that pretty common?
Yeah, that's the pattern. Usually
Okay.
when we ask a question, we take that subject. Here the subject is usted.
Okay.
And we move it to the back of the sentence.
Okay.
It's not necessary, but it's the most common way to make it sound like a question and the most common order for the words.
Okay, so let me try it again.
Okay.
¿Trabaja mucho usted? Is that fine?
Sí, muy bien.
Okay, very good.
Muy bien.
All right, let's try one more.
Okay.
And the statement is, Marcos trabaja en la cafetería.
Muy bien. Now, what do you think the question is going to look like? We'll take the subject. The subject is?
Well, the subject in this case is Marcos.
And we're going to move it towards the back
Toward
of
the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also we want to work on our inflection to make it sound like a question.
Okay, muy bien. So let's take a look at that question. Can I try it first?
Sí, por
All
favor.
right. ¿Trabaja en la cafetería Marcos?
Sí,
Sí.
muy bien. Muy buena pregunta.
Okay.
¿Trabaja en la cafetería, Marcos?
Okay, muy bien. How would you answer that one?
Sí, Marcos trabaja en la cafetería.
Okay, muy
Sí.
bien. Excelente. All right, good job. Ahora, now that we know how to ask a question, let's practice how to answer questions. So we will begin with the questions asked in the to form.
Muy
Okay,
bien.
so again, we go back to the slides
Okay.
and let's practice some questions. Okay, so this one, Kathy, ¿hablas español?
Sí, hablo español.
Okay, that's the answer. Sí, hablo español. Muy bien.
So let's see, the verb changed. When you asked me the question, you asked me in the to
in
form.
the to form,
And if you're asking me, I should answer with
in the yo form.
yo. Okay?
Okay.
So that's a pattern.
It's a pattern, yes.
Okay.
Anytime I'm asking you to, you would answer in the yo form.
Okay.
Okay, unless it would change, unless I'm asking about someone
Other
else.
people, okay.
Correct. All right, question number 2.
Carlos, ¿estudias las matemáticas?
Híjole, no estudio las matemáticas. Okay, no estudio las matemáticas.
Okay, why do we use no 2 times?
We do use double negative in Spanish.
Okay.
It's not common in English, is it?
No, instead in English we say things like no, I don't.
Uh-huh.
Right? Different
Yes.
kinds of words, but they're both negative.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. All right, and let's try a few more. Kathy, ¿compras muchos libros?
Sí, yo soy profesora, yo compro muchos libros.
Excelente, muy bien. Profesora.
Sí.
All right, y la siguiente.
Carlos, ¿escuchas música en el carro?
Siempre. Sí, escucho música en el carro.
Muy
Okay,
bien.
sí, escucho música en el carro. Mucha. All right, and let's try one more. And I will ask you, Kathy. Mira. Oh, now we're going to practice the usted, asking
bien.
questions in the usted form. So now it might change a little bit. So let's see. Mira la televisión usted?
Ahora, you're still asking about me,
Yes,
right?
but now I'm addressing you in the formal.
So you're changing your question, but my answer is not going to change, right?
No, it
I
will
still
remain the same.
describe myself. Yo miro la televisión.
Muy bien. Sí, miro la televisión. Okay, in this case, por la noche, ¿verdad?
Sí, por la noche, porque en el día yo trabajo.
Trabajas mucho.
Sí.
Okay, all right. One more question.
Okay, Carlos. ¿Viaja usted a México?
That makes me feel old, Kathy, but
It makes
I
you feel
guess
old?
it's okay for this.
Yeah, this
in
is a
this
practice.
case.
Usually you and I would use the tu form because
Sí.
we're colleagues.
Yes. So I would say, sí, viajo a México.
Muy
Sí,
bien.
viajo a México. Okay, muy bien.
Okay.
All right, so now let's practice the él and ella form to ask questions. And
So now we're not going to ask about you and I, we're going to ask about
somebody else.
somebody else,
A third
okay,
person.
other people.
Okay? Él o ella, he or she. Okay.
Okay.
So I will ask you, ¿viaja él a Costa Rica?
Él no viaja a Costa Rica.
No, okay. No, él no viaja a Costa Rica. Muy bien. All right, and one more question with él and ella.
Okay.
Sorry.
Carlos, ¿baila ella en las fiestas?
Sí, ella baila en las fiestas.
Muy bien,
Okay, ella
sí.
baila en las fiestas.
So here the verb didn't change, right? The question was baila.
Correct.
And the verb also uses that same form.
And it's the same
Baila.
thing with the previous sentence, viaja and viaja in the answer.
Okay, so when we're talking about a third person, we don't need to change the verb.
No, the verb remains the same.
Okay.
So that's easy, okay? Easy
Yeah.
to remember. All right, so now we're going to practice ustedes. Okay, so now we're asking
ustedes.
questions about a group of people, right?
Okay, so like you and your family or you and your friends.
Yes.
The you, okay.
So you can ask me the first one, Kathy.
Okay, Carlos. ¿Cantan bien ustedes?
No, no cantamos bien.
No.
Canto muy mal.
Okay.
So no cantamos bien.
Muy
We
bien.
don't sing well.
Okay.
Muy bien. And I will ask you, Kathy, ¿toman café ustedes por la mañana?
Sí, nosotros tomamos mucho café.
Mucho.
Sí.
Okay, muy bien. So sí, nosotros tomamos mucho café. But now it changed, though, the verb, right?
Right. Now when we ask the question ustedes, we always answer with nosotros.
Okay,
¿Sí?
muy bien. So notice I asked cantan, and the answer was, the verb was cantamos, and
Cantamos.
toman, and the answer was tomamos.
Tomamos,
Okay. All right, the last one will be for ellos and ellas.
Okay.
Okay. And the question is, ¿hablan inglés ellos, Kathy?
Ahora ellos, another third person, so the verb won't change. I'm still
No.
talking about them.
Correcto.
So I would say sí, ellos hablan inglés.
Sí, ellos hablan inglés. And again, notice the verbs are identical.
Correcto.
Ask me the question.
Carlos, ¿estudian ellas en las fiestas?
Creo que no.
No.
No. Ellas no estudian en las fiestas.
No es lógico, ¿verdad?
No estudian ellas en las fiestas. Okay?
Muy bien.
Muy bien, excelente.
Okay, so now we see this pattern where the question is asked in the tu form and we answer with yo. If question is asked in the ustedes form, we answer with nosotros.
Okay.
See?
Muy bien.
So now we're going to watch a short clip of students and professors asking or answering questions about languages that they speak. Listen carefully to how the question is asked and then the form that they use to answer the question. Also, if you can, try to listen for as many languages that you can that are mentioned in this short clip. ¿Habla inglés?
Sí, hablo mucho inglés.
¿Hablas japonés?
No, no hablo japonés.
¿Hablas español?
Sí, yo hablo español.
¿Hablas alemán?
No, no hablo alemán.
¿Hablas chino?
No, no hablo chino.
¿Habla francés?
No, no hablo francés.
¿Hablas español?
Sí, sí hablo español.
All right, Kathy, so what were some of the languages that we heard?
I heard one of them ask about español, francés.
Okay.
Maybe I didn't hear francés. I think I heard japonés.
Japonés.
What's japonés?
Japanese.
Japonés.
Japanese.
And I also heard alemán.
Alemán. And we heard some negative statements, right? Also.
Correcto también.
Not only affirmative, but negative. No,
yeah,
no
they
hablo
practiced
alemán.
using it in the negative. Sí,
Okay.
¿qué es alemán?
Alemán is German.
German. Muy
Okay.
bien.
¿Tú hablas alemán, Kathy?
No, yo no hablo alemán. ¿Tú?
¿Hablas chino?
¿Chino? No, no hablo chino.
Tampoco.
No.
Okay, muy bien, excelente. All right, ahora vamos a practicar. So let's practice answering some more questions. You will see the question, and then we will pause before giving the answer so that you have a chance to answer it yourself. Again, you can write it down, or you can say it out loud, that's fine. Remember that your answer remember that your answer to the question may be different from ours, but the verb you use to answer it should be the same as the one we use. Okay? So let's take a look at some of these questions. Okay? So the first one, I have a feeling it's going to be about traveling. Okay? And the question is, ¿viajas tú con frecuencia? ¿Viajas tú con frecuencia? Okay. Now, if you were to ask me, Kathy, that question.
I think I already know the answer.
You know the
let's
answer?
See. Sí, Carlos.
Okay.
¿Viajas tú con frecuencia?
I would say sí, viajo con frecuencia, okay? Or viajo mucho. So sí, viajo mucho. ¿Qué significa frecuencia, Kathy?
Frecuencia, frequently.
Frequently, it's a cognate. Very good. So sí, viajo mucho or viajo con frecuencia. Muy bien. All right, let's try another question. Now, these are students, I'm assuming.
En la clase.
Estudiantes, okay? Y la pregunta es, ¿estudian la historia ellas, Kathy? ¿Estudian la historia ellas?
Sí, sí.
¿Sabemos lo que es historia?
Sí, la historia es una materia, una clase en la universidad.
Sí.
Yo digo que sí. Sí, ellos estudian la historia.
Okay. Entonces la respuesta es sí, ellas estudian la historia. Muy bien. All right, y la siguiente pregunta. Este es un niño, y él toma algo. Okay. La pregunta es, ¿toma agua el niño? ¿Toma agua el niño?
Sí, probablemente. Sí, el niño toma agua.
El niño toma agua, okay. O limonada, ¿no?
O limonada, o
lemonade.
leche.
Excelente. La siguiente, la pregunta es, ¿escucha música ella? ¿Escucha música ella?
Sí, sí, ella escucha música.
Okay. Sí, ella escucha música. Muy bien.
Yeah.
¿Tú escuchas música?
Sí, yo escucho música en la casa, en el carro.
Muy bien. Y la siguiente pregunta es, ¿trabajan en la oficina ellos? ¿Trabajan en la oficina ellos?
Sí, ellos trabajan en la oficina.
Muy bien, sí, trabajan en la oficina o ellos trabajan. Muy bien. Y una más. Vamos a ver.
Okay.
La pregunta es, ¿estudian mucho ustedes? ¿Estudian mucho ustedes? Now I'm asking about a group of people, right? If they study. See?
Are you asking about them or are you asking about me and my friends?
Well, yes, you and your friends.
Okay. So if you're asking about us, I'm going to change the verb to nosotros.
Nosotros.
¿Sí? So I would say sí, estudiamos mucho.
Excelente. Sí, estudiamos mucho. Muy bien. All right, uno más.
Okay.
Y la siguiente pregunta es, ¿baila usted en la clase?
¿En
¿Baila
la
usted
clase?
en la clase?
No, en la clase no. No bailo en la clase, yo bailo en las fiestas.
Ok, no bailo en la clase, bailo en las fiestas.
Sí.
Muy bien. Bueno, hay clase de baile, ¿verdad? Hay clases de baile.
Hay muchas clases de baile.
En clase de español no.
En la clase de español no bailo.
Ok,
¿Sí?
muy bien. All right, excelente.
Okay, so far we've been practicing how to make questions negative and answer questions in the yo form, in the usted form, in different forms. See? We also want to practice some more AR verbs to add to our vocabulary. So we're going to see some new words that you can add to the list, and be sure to pronounce these words out loud to practice your pronunciation.
All right, very good. So let's take a look at these. And again, these verbs are conjugated exactly the same way as we've been conjugating these verbs.
And we have so many verbs, don't we? We have lots and lots of verbs.
Too many.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at the new ones.
Okay.
The first one is, just repeat it after us, and then we'll give you the translation.
Okay.
Caminar.
Caminar.
Caminar. Y caminar es to walk.
To walk.
Okay.
Muy bien.
El segundo es cenar.
Cenar.
Okay. Y cenar es to have dinner.
Muy bien.
Okay.
Yo ceno en el restaurante esta noche.
Yo ceno en mi casa esta noche.
Muy bien.
Okay. Muy bien. El siguiente es desayunar.
Desayunar.
Desayunar. Y eso es to have breakfast.
To have breakfast.
Okay.
Yo normalmente ceno en mi casa. Perdón. Yo normalmente desayuno en mi casa.
Okay, muy bien. Y yo normalmente desayuno cereal en mi casa. Cereal, siempre.
Cereal con leche.
Con leche.
Muy bien.
Sí. Y el siguiente verbo es descansar. Descansar.
Descansar. ¿Cómo se
Y
dice?
descansar es to rest.
To rest. Muy
Okay.
bien. Descansar.
Okay, muy bien. Yo descanso los fines de semana.
El
¿Tú?
sábado, el domingo.
Sábado y domingo.
Sí, yo también descanso el sábado.
Okay. enseñar. Y enseñar is to
teach.
teach. Muy bien,
So,
enseñar.
nosotros enseñamos la clase.
Enseñamos la clase.
Sí.
Enseñamos español.
Bien. sí.
Ok, muy bien. Y practicar. Practicar es similar a cuando enseñas, los estudiantes practican.
Practican,
Practicar
sí.
is to practice.
Sí, muy
ok.
bien. Nosotros enseñamos y los estudiantes practican.
Practican. Ustedes practican.
Sí.
Ok. Más verbos, more verbs. El primero, preparar.
Preparar.
Es un cognado.
Yeah, it's a very similar word in English.
Y en inglés es to prepare.
Muy bien.
Again, you can guess the meaning of some of these.
Okay.
Preguntar es el siguiente.
Preguntar. It sounds like the word pregunta. Pregunta is a question, so this
Sí.
must be to ask a question.
To ask a question. Muy bien. Preguntar. ¿Tus estudiantes preguntan mucho?
Sí, los estudiantes preguntan mucho.
Ajá,
Es
muchas
bueno,
preguntas.
es bueno
Es
preguntar.
bueno, sí. Regresar es el siguiente verbo.
Regresar. To return.
To return. Now there's another one that means to return. Some of you might know it, but that ends in ER, so we will not cover it now.
We'll save it
but
for the next
later,
list.
yes.
Okay.
So that's to return. Terminar. ¿Qué es terminar,
Terminar.
Kathy?
It sounds like the Terminator.
Terminate.
What's the verb?
In this case, it's to end or to finish.
To end or to finish. Terminar.
Muy bien. Okay. Y el siguiente es tocar.
Tocar. I think I've seen this verb used a few different ways. We could use it to play an instrument. ¿Sí? Tocar el piano.
El piano. Ajá.
Tocar la flauta.
Muy bien.
Okay, tocar.
Okay, but also, I don't know if it's the case in the rest of Latin America, but in Mexico we use tocar also to knock on the door. Okay,
So when
tocar
someone
la puerta.
knocks, él toca.
Ajá, toca la puerta.
Muy bien.
Okay, muy bien. Ahora, el siguiente y el último es dibujar.
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 Dibujar, to draw.
To draw, muy bien, to draw. Okay, all right. And we have two more.
Okay.
So let's go over the next two. Siguiente es necesitar.
Necesitar. To need.
To need, muy bien, to need. Y el último, the last one, is desear.
Desear. Este es el verbo to desire, to wish
to
for
desire,
something.
to wish for something.
Okay.
¿Qué deseas, Kathy?
Oh,
¿Qué
yo
deseas?
deseo un café.
Un café. Yo
¿Qué
deseo. ¿Qué deseo? Deseo agua.
Agua,
Un vaso
sí.
de agua.
Bueno, está bien. Al final de clase.
Sí,
Sí.
al
muy
final de
bien.
clase.
Okay.
All right.
So,
So
what
what's
should,
next?
Let's see, what should we remember about these two verbs? Because these are going to be a little bit different. These last two verbs, desear and necesitar, can also work in front of another verb. We'll use two verbs together.
You can use a verb right after it. So these two verbs can use another verb. In this case, if you do use another verb after it, it has to be in its infinitive form, okay?
Oh, so
it's similar in
desear-
English when you say I need or I want to travel, okay? So that would be in Spanish, yo necesito viajar, okay?
muy
So we
bien.
use the verb, the second one, in
As
its
an
infinitive
infinitive.
form, so you don't conjugate it, okay?
Okay, so if I wanted to say, for example, necesitar, and next to the verb maybe to study, estudiar, how do I put the two together in a sentence?
Okay, so
Necesitar and then estudiar.
okay, so I would conjugate the first one.
Okay.
So if it's me, I would say yo necesito. And then the second verb, you don't conjugate it. You leave it as it is. So necesito estudiar.
Muy bien.
And it's left in its
Necesito
infinitive
estudiar.
form.
Okay. Yeah.
Very good.
So we'll have to practice those. Let's do a
yes,
few
let's
of
do
those
a
just
practice
to
section.
make sure we get it. Okay.
All right, so we have the verb desear, okay? And notice that it says yo deseo tomar agua. So if we remember what desear means, it means to
To desire.
or to want,
something.
okay?
Uh-huh.
And tomar means to
To drink. Uh-huh.
okay? So deseo tomar agua means I wish or desire to drink water, okay?
So I don't have to say tomo agua?
In this case, tomo agua just means I drink water.
But here I want to say I wish to drink water. I want to drink
I want
water.
to drink water. So that's why we use desear and tomar right after it, and you don't conjugate it at all.
Okay, so we conjugated the first one and we left the second one alone.
Untouched.
Okay.
All right, let's look at another one.
Muy bien.
Mis amigos desean hablar español.
Mis
Okay?
amigos desean hablar español. Bien. They want to speak Spanish.
Very good. And the same thing. Again, you have desear, which is already conjugated. It agrees with amigos. And hablar is left untouched. It's not conjugated.
Okay.
Okay, let's try another one. Now we're going to try some with necesitar, which is to need.
Okay.
Okay, the first one is necesitamos practicar el español.
Sí, necesitamos practicar el español.
Okay.
We need to practice Spanish.
Very good.
Sí.
Okay, necesitamos practicar español.
Okay.
And the next one, mis amigos necesitan trabajar. Son muy flojos. They're a little
Sí,
lazy.
necesitan.
Necesitan trabajar.
Mis amigos necesitan trabajar. Same thing. We conjugated the first verb, necesitan,
Very good.
and we made it match with amigos. And then the second verb, we left it in the infinitive form.
Exactamente. Perfecto. Very good.
Okay.
Okay.
So can we practice using some verbs in a sentence?
Of course we can.
Okay.
Let's do that right now. All right. Actually, we're not going to practice two verbs. Why don't we just practice forming sentences first, and maybe
Okay.
in the next lesson we can do the practice with two verbs.
Okay.
So in this example, you have ella, and then practicar
Okay.
el vocabulario.
So those are just pieces that we need to put
Pieces.
together
So we
because
need to
that doesn't
form
make
a
sense
complete
yet.
sentence with it.
Okay.
And to do that, we need to, of course, conjugate the verb, which
Okay.
is practicar.
Correcto.
And it has to agree with whom? Who's the subject?
The subject is ella, the person doing the practicing.
Very good.
So ella practica el vocabulario.
Excelente. Ella practica el vocabulario. Again, at home, if you can work ahead and conjugate and form the sentence before we do it, that would be magnificent. Okay. The next one is nosotros desear un café.
Muy bien.
Okay.
So nosotros deseamos un café.
Muy bien. Nosotros, you're getting the hang of this. Nosotros deseamos un café. Okay. The subject is nosotros, so you conjugate the verb according to that.
Okay.
Siguiente is Marcos desear estudiar. Now here we do have two verbs, okay?
And now I have to choose which one to conjugate.
So which one would you conjugate, Kathy?
Well, we were practicing desear and necesitar, so I would say Marcos desea estudiar.
Yes, you conjugate the first one, so Marcos desea estudiar. Okay, very good, excelente. All right, let's try one more. And then it's tú y yo, necesitar trabajar. So now we have two verbs, okay?
Okay, so two verbs. The subject, tú y yo, that's another way to say nosotros. So the verb should match that, right? Tú y yo necesitamos trabajar.
Excelente, tú y yo necesitamos trabajar. Kathy, tú y yo necesitamos trabajar. Now I'm asking
Sí.
you, notice my voice rose a little bit?
I heard the question
So let me
there.
ask you again, ¿necesitamos trabajar?
Sí, tú y yo necesitamos trabajar.
All right, muy bien. Thank you so much for watching today's segment. So we'll see you in our next installment. Hasta Dios, que tengan un buen día.